Welcome. This is Glasgow Rangers Nation. I am Owen James, and this is all your latest Rangers news, your one-stop shop for everything Rangers FC. Guys, we've got a bit of a Clement breakdown today. We've got some surprising news about transfer spend. Those of you who think that Beale spent all the money, we're going to compare that with what Clement has, well, not Clement, I suppose, as much, but Clement and Coppen have spent this summer. We've got some CEO news as Adrian Bevington, former head of FA Communications, has been talking about the CEO role at Rangers, and could this present an interesting opportunity for the Rangers board if they show some intelligence and actually take an opportunity that may be presenting itself. We've got the latest on the Tav story that we broke last night as regards the 6 clubs that are allegedly interested in him as well. So there's a lot to get through, guys. So obviously stay tuned, hook in, and get ready for a bit of a pod coming up this morning, this afternoon, or even this evening, depending obviously when you're watching. It's Saturday. There's no real football. It's not great, is it? Well, I suppose we've got a situation where Rangers won't ruin our weekends. But let's start with a little bit of CEO news. So obviously, look, Rangers need a CEO. I mean, I think we've made that ultimately clear. We need a CEO. We need someone to come in to organise the club, to run the club that has some football nous, has some business nous, and is not a crony of the board. Someone who is not a yes man to this dreadful bunch we've got running the club at this moment in time. Rangers need a whole host of positions filling. We need a CEO. We need a director of academy, still not replaced since Zeb Jacobs left. We need a director of football, still not replaced since Ross Wilson left. We need a real, genuine chairman who can do the job, who understands football. It was Graham Souness told us we have a group of people on the board that don't have much football knowledge between them. So there's an awful lot of roles that need to be filled, an awful lot of infrastructure, an awful lot of management structure that needs to be put in place at the club that is not there. And I think he's obviously clearly contributing to the awful, genuinely bad running of this club. Look, a CEO is absolutely vital for me. The appointment of a CEO, someone who could, come in, has knowledge of business, has a knowledge of running football clubs, has genuinely got, the best interest of the club at heart. Someone who can be, this sort of away from the board, away from the manager, and take the right decisions in terms of building this club back up to where it should be. Something we've not had, obviously, since James Bisgrove left. John Bennett has been trying to do the role, and I think has ultimately failed quite spectacularly to fulfill that role. So look, I genuinely honestly believe we need this CEO. Now, Adrian Bevington, those of you who don't know who Adrian Bevington is, there he is a guy who was questioned today on Go Radio as regards his interest in possibly taking the Rangers CEO position. Who is Adrian Bevington, for those of you who don't know? He's the former English FA chief. He has experience also working at football clubs, having worked with Middlesbrough, Hartlepool, now working with German clubs, as part of the World Cup organisation. He's certainly someone who has a vast CV of working with football clubs and major football organisations. Obviously, working for the FA was one of those major roles. He was involved with working alongside England managers such as Sven-Göran Eriksson and Fabio Capello, who are probably two of the better managers in world football history. I mean, Fabio Capello in particular, obviously not a great job for England, but this is a guy who won multiple Champions League trophies, multiple Serie A titles. This is someone that Adrian Bevington has worked with. He does have a very extensive football knowledge, both in recruitment and in football business. So, this would be a guy who I think could make a major difference to the Rangers structure. Now, obviously, he's not someone that the Rangers board have said that they're interested in, but he was someone who was talking about the role and was questioned as to his interest in the role. And I think this is something that hopefully the Rangers board have sat up and taken notice of. Now, he's speaking on the Go Football radio show on Thursday. He said that he said he was asked about his CV, which obviously is extensive and second to none. He was asked if that Ibrox could be something that would attract him to come and work in Scotland. He said, well, I've got a very good job at the moment working with the leading German football agency that I've been doing for 2 years. But look, Scottish football, I've made no secret of the fact that I would like at some point in my career always be interested in working in Scotland. I think it's an incredible, passionate footballing country. And I've got a great deal of respect for the game up there because of the fan base. You've got so much to build on up there. But Rangers as a football club is such a huge football institution. It's a global club. Obviously, they are not happy with the situation they're in at the moment, and the fans are definitely not happy. I've been following it very closely, and clearly they were well beaten at the weekend by a very strong Celtic team. What I would say is, whoever the chief executive is going to be, it's got to be somebody who can show real leadership. They've got to have a real good understanding of the game and the industry and a knowledge of the transfer market. Yes, they've got to be commercially strong to increase revenues, but ultimately they've got to have football industry nous, a real common sense, the ability to work relationships. If you've got all that, you've got a chance, but it's still a very demanding and difficult job for whoever that person may be. Now, looking at those comments that Adrian Bevington has made, it's clear that he has a very deep understanding of what a CEO needs to be, a guy with football knowledge, a guy with transfer knowledge, a guy with business knowledge, sort of an all-round football guy. Now, this is kind of got to be the guiding principles behind any appointment of any CEO at Rangers, someone who can come in, hit the ground running and develop not only the football side of the business, but the income revenue streams as well to increase the amount of money coming into the club. You know, this he's right in the aspect that it will be a difficult job for someone. You know, the club is a mess at the moment. The way the situation is at the moment with the playing side, with the business side, with the whole business of Rangers at the moment is not good. You know, I think since 2012, the boards, the CEOs, the director of footballs, whoever it may have been, have made shockingly bad decisions that have placed us as a club in a very bad position, where at this moment in time we are light years behind our Glasgow neighbours. We are not in a position to really challenge them, and they are streets ahead of us financially and on the pitch as well. So it really is not good. So Bevington is right in what he has to say. You know, he says that it's someone who has to show leadership. Correct. They have to be a leader, you know, in the boardroom. They have to be a leader out of the boardroom. They have to be a leader with the manager, a leader with the playing staff, a leader with the fans, a leader with the media, a leader on all aspects of the sport. You know, they've got to have a good understanding. Yes, and 100% they've got to have an understanding of how transfer markets work, how player purchasing works, how contract works, you know, how the whole situation behind the club works, how running a club works. Now, Bevington would be someone who would have all of those things. You know, he certainly would understand all those things, having worked in the game. You know, he worked at Middlesbrough, for example. He's worked with the FA, worked in the highest echelons of the English game. You know, obviously, you know, as part of the work with the FA, he worked with the Premier League. So, you know, this is a guy who has a vast, extensive CV. So, look, I mean, yes, he has a job at this moment in time, but, you know, hopefully the Rangers board are looking at people like Adrian Bevington, you know, real, genuine guys who've got real world football experience, guys who can make genuine differences, who can make difficult decisions, who can make big decisions, who genuinely get and understand the game. And that's what we need when it comes to running our football club. So for me, Bevington is someone, you know, or someone like Adrian Bevington would be absolutely perfect for the Rangers CEO role. Guys, what do you think? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Right, let's talk a little bit about the whole James Tavernier situation. Just quickly touch on that. As I said, obviously the majority of what I wanted to talk about was on the video last night. 6 clubs allegedly interested: Başakşehir, Istanbul, Fenerbahçe, Galatasaray, Giovan Broncos, Besiktas, the 2 teams from Qatar. You know, rumours have it it's TalkSport that are suggesting that negotiations and discussions are ongoing. They're also suggesting that Rangers would be prepared to allow Tavernier to leave for the right price. You know, look, I think, you know, whatever your feelings are about James Tavernier, whether you rate him, whether you want to keep him, whether you don't like him, whether you can't stand him anymore, whether you want him out of the club now, whatever you want doing with him, if we can get a decent fee in, if we can get a decent bid in from one of these 4 Turkish clubs or one of these 2 Qatari clubs, then, you know, it's something we should definitely be accepting at this stage. You know, the final clearing of the old guard, the final clearing of that team that went to Seville, the redevelopment of this squad, the redevelopment of the leadership group. I think we can all agree that there is a real lack of leadership within this squad. There is a real lack of direction within the team. You know, you certainly only have to look at the game on Sunday against Celtic to see the complete lack of leadership on the pitch, to take possession and to take ownership of a situation that went south very, very quickly. James Tavernier, obviously, along with others, has to carry a lion's share of the blame for that as the captain. So, if we can clear him out, get rid of him, and then obviously start to rebuild this leadership group, which is something we desperately need to do, it would be all for the positive. But obviously, TalkSport and a number of other media outlets suggesting that there is a bit of validity to these stories. Obviously, one to keep an eye on over the coming days anyway. Right, let's talk a bit of Philippe Clement. Now, Clement, you're either pro-Clement or you're anti-Clement. I think that's kind of where we're at this moment in time. As a club, we're in not a great situation. And I think Clement hasn't exactly helped himself with some of his comments. You hear him talk about the fact that in his opinion, it was the fine margins. It was close on Sunday. They didn't massively outplay us. It was a game that, could have gone either way. Yet, I think anybody, who watched that game on Sunday saw that Celtic were by far the better team. There was a chasm between us and them in terms of talent. There is a chasm between us and them in terms of ability. There is a chasm in terms of us and them and financial business as well. You've only got to look at their transfer business to see that they spent 34 million, but they brought in 38 million. They had a 10 million pound man on the bench, for goodness sake, whereas we're bringing the likes of Tom Lawrence and Hamza Igman off the bench. So, the situation is not great there, is it? And I think at times Clement's comments, post-game comments, are bordering on the utterly bizarre. Now, whether he's just doing this to deflect, whether he's just doing this to kind of push away the attention from the players, which is obviously very clever management. He's bringing it all upon himself, which, you could think that it is a possibility that this is what he's doing, that he's trying to shield his players from criticism. He's trying to shield his players from being absolutely slaughtered by the media. They were slaughtered by the fan base. I mean, you've only got to look at the reaction of the fans outside Ibrox on the Sunday when the Rangers players came back to notice the anger and the discontentment. And I think, look, whilst, spitting at players is absolutely unforgivable and just absolutely abhorrent and should not be done, the lad who sort of told Tav that he was a loser and told him to F off, I think, he's speaking for a lot of fans, and, he's within his rights to air his criticisms. He's within his rights to air his frustrations. I know he's had a lot of, criticisms from people and said he's out of order. I don't feel he's as out of order as some people are making him out to be. James Tavernier is a large part of what is wrong at this football club. He's not the only thing that is wrong at this football club. There is a lot wrong at this football club. And I'll, say quite willingly that with the exception of probably Connor Barron, the vast majority of that team on Sunday, I think I'd say 10 out of the 11 starters and probably most of the subs were absolutely pathetic and just genuinely not good enough. Their performance was unacceptable. I think we can all say that, and I'm not just singling James Tavernier out here, but as the captain, you carry an extra part of the blame. As a leader on the pitch, you carry some of the blame. Now, I think Philippe Clement has to carry a large portion of the blame. Now, people have talked about his backing. He hasn't been backed. He hasn't been fully backed, so we can't, criticize him. I just want to share a couple of statistics with you, right? Okay, so this is from Transfer Market. This is what we spent and what we brought in last summer under Michael Beale. So last summer there were 22 arrivals and there were 18 departures. So 22 departures, 18 arrivals, overall, with loan returns, etc. We spent 16.8 million. We brought in 13.35 million. This is very basic fees. Obviously, this does not include loan fees, signing on fees, bonuses, etc. But obviously, one of the things that Michael Beale has been beaten with is the amount of money he spent on players. So we spent 16.8 million on players like Dessers and obviously and Lammers, etc. So this is what we spent. We made a loss of 3.45 million in the transfer window, despite the sales of Kamara, Sakala, Cholak, etc. So just bear in mind that figure, 16.8 million. This was this summer. We spent 16.86 million, so about £60,000 more than we spent last summer. We brought in only 2.95 million. So we actually made a loss in this market of £13.91 million. Now, like I said, those fees are basic. They don't include loan fees. They don't include signing on fees. They're just purely based on transfer fees. So you can see that Clement, in terms of sheer transfer spend, has actually spent more money than Michael Beale. Yeah, Michael Beale, and I'm not saying for a minute that Michael Beale is a good manager. I'm not saying that Michael Beale should be back. I'm not saying that Beale is right, because Beale is shit. He's one of the worst managers in the club's history. Was actually spent less money than Philippe Clement has spent. Yet there is this narrative that Clement hasn't spent any money, that he hasn't brought in players. I think a large part of what we've done is not spent money wisely. He's not put money into the right areas. He's not brought in the right players. He's wasted a lot of money. You know, rather than spending 16.86 million on whatever it was, we think 7, 8, 9, 10 players we eventually brought in by the end of the window. Would we not have been better at spending, say, 15, 16 million on 2 or 3 players or 4 players to improve the squad? Would that not have been a better option? Do we not need to have been a little bit wiser with how we've invested this money? I think there is some very bad investment that has gone on in terms of players that we've brought in. So I think this narrative that Clement hasn't been, excuse me, fully backed is slightly false to some degree, given the amount of money that he and Niels Koppen have spent this summer. I still obviously don't have any trust or faith in the board. I still think they could have obviously been a lot more honest with where we are with the situation. I do still think that John Bennett and Douglas Park and his son need to get out of the club as soon as possible. But I just wanted to share those figures with you. Right, let's have a little look. So in 2024, what is Clement's record? I'm not talking since he was appointed. I'm talking about since in 2024. In this calendar year, since January 2024, how have Rangers performed on the field? Now, this is pure stats. We'll talk about performances shortly, but let's talk a little bit about stats. This is stats, okay? So in 2024, Clement's record at Rangers is as follows. He's played 30 games. Well, he hasn't. He's managed 30 games. We've won 18. We've lost 7. Majority of those, obviously, to Celtic. We've drawn 6. That's quite a good word, actually. We've drawn 6. We've got 65 goals for, 33 goals against. So we've conceded more than a goal a game. Scored just over 2 goals a game. His win percentage is 60%. Now, how does that compare with the entire careers of others? Paul Le Guen was 51%. Pedro Caíña was 54%. Steven Gerrard was 65%. And let's just dispel one rumour here that's been going around. Steven Gerrard is not returning to Rangers. Michael Beale, 72%, which does kind of give a little bit of a lie to what win percentages show. So, look, I mean, since in 2024, his record has not been overly convincing. It's not been great, has it? I mean, only 60% win percentage, conceding more than a goal a game, losing 7 games, which, 7 out of 30 is not bad, is it? But for a Rangers manager, it is quite bad. Now, this was his record with Monaco before he came to Rangers. Now, I know he did well in Belgium, but I think, you've got to kind of take that with a pinch of salt. The Belgian league, yes, he's stronger than the Scottish League, but Club Brugge, Genk are not huge, massive global clubs in the same way that Rangers are, for example. Now, the French Ligue 1 is slightly stronger, obviously, than the Scottish Premier League, but it's still one of the weaker leagues in Europe. With Monaco, he managed 73 games. He won 37 of them. He lost 21. He drew 15. They scored 143 goals in that time. That's under 2 goals a game, and they conceded 115, more than a goal a game. His win percentage was 51%, which is very poor at Monaco. In terms of his win percentage versus top teams, now by top teams, I mean the likes of Paris Saint-Germain, Olympique Marseille, Lille, Rennes, Lyon, people like that, top teams in France. It was 40%, which is less than 50%, which means he won less than half of his games against the top teams, which is not overly impressive. Something we've seen kind of continued to some extent in Scotland with his old firm record. So what is his old firm record? This is his old firm record. So Clement's old firm record does not make nice reading. Played 5, won none, lost 4, drawn 1, 4, 5 against 11. So more than 2 goals a game conceded, 1 goal a game scored, which is not great. Never won a single game, so his win percentage is 0, and we've lost 4/5. We've lost 80%. We played against Celtic, which is pretty appalling. 80 is pretty shit. To lose that amount of games to your rivals is not good at all. I mean, I know Rangers' record in all firm games over the last few years has been shit anyway, even under Gio and under Michael Beale. We did obviously win that cup. We did win that semi-final, and we did, of course, win that meaningless 3-0 at Ibrox under Michael Beale. So, look, I mean, in terms of pure statistics, his record is not massively impressive. Now, I've pulled a few results and a few games out of those to talk about. We'll talk about style, tactics, substance in a moment. But, these are the games that kind of stand out. Yes, I am slightly taking the piss there with that moral victory cup. I don't think that comment helped. It was another one of those stupid comments that he does make. I mean, I think at times Clement could do with thinking before he speaks. I think he has got a bit of bigger-litis at times. So, I mean, let's look at those games. I mean, Motherwell game at home was a time when we had potential to really go on and take control and take command of the title race. A 2-1 loss at home to Motherwell in what was a very, very bad performance, an appalling performance. A game, if we'd won, given the fact that Celtic also dropped points that weekend, we could have really taken control of the title race. But again, we didn't do it. Our tactics were poor. Our shape was poor. Our team played badly. And we lost at home at Ibrox to Motherwell, which is literally, unforgivable. Then we have the Benfica game. We came into that game at Ibrox having drawn 2-2 with a very fine result in the Estadio de la Luz. Feeling, I think, very positive about that we could go on to be, to get through to the next round. But we lost 1-0. Again, showed no clinical cutting edge. Again, poor going forward. Again, tactics were wrong. And again, just did not play well at all. Then we've got the 3-3 against Celtic at home at Ibrox. Again, another chance to really get back into the title race, to put them back in their place, to lay down a marker. And we blow it. We go down 2-0 down at half-time. We do fight back, which is all credit to the team for that. But we go on to draw only 3-3. And then for Clement to come out with the fact that it was a moral victory is slightly embarrassing. The Ross County away 3-2 at Ross County, their first ever victory over Rangers, is just absolutely shameful. An absolutely dreadful performance. To lose 3-2 to Ross County, unforgivable, and a performance that was very poor. The celebration against St Johnstone, I've said this a number of times, and I'll repeat this until I'm dead. I think, the decision to allow the team to celebrate as they did and Clement to join in was a huge mistake. I mean, guys, Walter Smith, can you imagine him allowing that? Can you imagine Graham Souness allowing that? Could you imagine Richard Gough, Terry Butcher, the likes of those people doing that? No, not a chance. Embarrassing. And then the away game this weekend, obviously losing 3-0 to Celtic in a performance where he comes out and uses statistics to argue that we were actually close to them when we actually genuinely weren't. We were genuinely very poor. Is just beggars belief. It really genuinely does. Now, I'm not sitting here to say that he should be sacked. What I'm doing is raising questions that he needs to answer, questions that he needs to move on. Now, my criticisms of Clement and my questions of Clement are very clear. Why is it that certain players, no matter how bad they are, continue to be picked, no matter how bad they play? Why is it that when he says things that he doesn't then follow through on them? He's talked about the fact that James Tavernier cannot play every minute of every game, yet has played every minute of every game this season. He talked about the Danilo injury not being an injury when we saw him limping, and he was told that's how he walks. And then it comes out a couple of weeks later that he is, in fact, injured. There's a lot of what Clement says that you kind of sit there and you kind of have to not believe now. And he's not really doing himself any favors speaking in these half-truths and these kind of trying to manipulate the media kind of comments that he does, make on the whole. In terms of the team as well on the pitch, this harking over this Ross County result, I'm going to be honest with you, I probably could have got 11 fans who would have given Ross County a decent game. To be perfectly honest with you, I don't think that proves anything. And I think at times the performance on the pitch has been poor. We're not seeing a style. We're not seeing an organisation. We're not seeing a substance. And talking to a couple of people recently, one of the things that I've said that I'm very worried about in terms of Clement is, number one, his in-game management. His substitutions are very poor. He makes them at the wrong times. He makes the wrong substitutions. He makes tactically naive substitutions. And he doesn't seem to make substitutions to change things tactically. He seems to make substitutions just to swap players over, that hope that plan B, which is to change players for plan A, and hope that plan B is to do plan A better, doesn't seem to work. a tactical inflexibility to move away from a formation that he is absolutely hooked on. Good coaches, and whether that's, and I think people have said, well, Jurgen Klopp and Mikel Arteta and etc. wouldn't get a tune out of this team. Well, I don't think that's true. I think that a good coach adapts his tactics, adapts his formation, adapts his style to suit the players that he's got. He may have a formation, a style he likes to use, but if he doesn't got the players to play that, he adapts his shape, his style, his tactics, his formation to suit the players he has got. Something which Clement seems unwilling to do. So there is a slight concern on that side of the things, his tactical inflexibility, his inability to change. And I've heard comments, worrying comments today that as a coach, he is not very highly regarded. Now, these are all kind of worrying comments. Now, I'm not saying, like I said, for a minute that we should sack him, but I think, he is very much under pressure and he needs to obviously try and get through this pressure and grow this team and this squad and develop them and use what he's got, because the transfer window is now closed until January. So he's got to, I think, show some more tactical flexibility, show some more positional flexibility and kind of try and adapt a little bit to the players he's actually got and understand that, whilst we all want to do what we want to do and we want to follow the schemes that we want to follow, it's not always entirely possible. He needs to show a bit more balls when it comes to certain players as well, in terms of kicking them out of the squad and kicking them out of the first team when not performing. There is a lot of worrying signs about Philippe Clement at the moment, signs of a kind of Groundhog Monaco Day-esque kind of response to, the way he's been performing at this moment in time, as Monaco fans did tell us when we appointed him. Like I said, there are uncertainties and, obviously Dundee United next week, if we lose that game, then the pressure will ramp up even more on him. We need to see a response. We need to see a good response to that Celtic game on the when we play Dundee in a week's time. Guys, let me know what you think anyway of what I've shown you this morning, this afternoon or this evening and shared with you. Thank you for watching Glasgow Rangers Nation, guys. As always, on the way out, please smash that like and remember, and obviously comment, that helps. And remember always, we are the people.